broadcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from Las Vegas in the Mappable USA studios. And folks, we're always talking about crowdfunding. We're going to talk about bringing people into and putting them on the map. And today we're going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart and really doesn't get a whole lot of podcast talk, in my opinion. It's called real estate syndication. I am amazed at the number of people here that I know in Las Vegas that are into real estate agents, brokers, and they really don't have a clue as to what real estate syndication is. And it's kind of a way of crowdfunding. You're talking about investing in real estate projects. But today I brought on this guy's great. He's a real industry leader in the real estate syndication market. And let's all welcome here Adam Gower from the National Real Estate Forum. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well, Ron. Thank you very much indeed for having me on your show.
Great. I appreciate the time that you're taking to be on this thing. And now I did a little intro before about real estate syndication and how important it is. You've been involved in real estate for quite a long time. Tell the audience your background, how you got into this in the first place.
Yeah, sure. I've actually been involved in real estate since the dawn of time. I don't confess to actually how long I've been involved. It gives away my age. But actually, certainly more than 30 or so years. I started by pulling wires for an electrician. That's how I started in real estate, and ended up doing some syndications for multifamily apartments in San Diego. And then I moved to Japan, of all things.
Wow,
where
okay.
I ended up building out the real estate portfolio for Universal Studios in Asia Pacific. So I did that for a few years. And then I came back here and I started developing my own portfolios. And then I kind of got lucky, Ron, because in 2007, as you know, the real estate world, in fact, the entire financial system almost came to a grinding halt. And I got lucky because there was something in the air that was bothering me, and I sold my entire portfolio. So I went into the downturn, with a lot of dry powder, and was intrigued by what was going on. So I was brought in by a major West Coast bank to assist them with their divestments. And so I sold or worked on around $1 billion of distressed real estate deals during that time. And then I went over to Colony Capital, who you may know. They're a major private equity fund, and they bought around $7 billion or so from the FDIC. So I worked with them. And then the worst thing in the world happened, and the economy picked up. Right, so all this amazing opportunity went away, and I decided to start to look at how tech was impacting real estate, and that's how I discovered what is called crowdfunding, but actually is more accurately termed syndication, actually real estate syndication, and that's something that I have been doing throughout my career, raising capital for deals. The opportunities that, as you well know, the Jobs Act opened up for real estate syndication became really incredible, right? The opportunity to raise money, solicit capital online. That's really what changed everything.
And from non-accredited investors as well, which opens up a whole door for a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. Non-accredited and accredited investors, depending on what you're doing, right? We've talked, you and I, before about Regulation A, but there's Reg CF and various other channels that non-accredited investors can use as well. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So when you're talking about syndication on a really top level, it's just a bunch of investors or people pulling their money together to buy a real estate asset. Is that right? That's the simplest definition of it, right?
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah, it's a group of people that come together to pool their resources and buy or invest in real estate. That's exactly right.
All right, and now this real estate investment is usually in the term of a commercial project or projects. Right? So people who want to maybe develop a warehouse or an apartment building or something like that. I mean, we're not really talking about single-family homes and things like that, but it's more on a high-level commercial, or is it? There are probably opportunities out there for everything, right?
Yeah, well, look, syndication is used when you don't have enough money to do it yourself, basically, right? I mean, at the simplest level. If you have enough money to do a deal yourself, then probably better off doing it yourself, unless you want to expand into bigger projects or more projects, in which case you would need to access capital from other people. And as soon as you do that, you're syndicating, right? If you ask friends and relatives for capital to invest in a deal, then you just became a syndicator.
Right. So syndicators are also called sponsors. Is that do you function as a sponsor? Is that your primary role?
Okay, so there's actually, I would make the distinction between a sponsor and a syndicator. A syndicator syndication is really related directly to the finance, to the capitalization of a deal. A sponsor is somebody who is the active manager of a project, the person who is managing the day-to-day development of a project or redevelopment of a project. And a sponsor might hire a syndicator to raise the money for them.
Got it.
So there is a distinction.
Right.
In most cases, the sponsor is syndicating their own deals, but these are two different roles, and people specialize in syndicating, but they don't actually manage the deals themselves. That's
an interesting point, because I always thought of those two terms as interchangeable, but there's a big difference between those two for sure.
Yeah.
Who is the one that actually identifies the property? That's the sponsor?
Yes, the sponsor is the person who identifies the property, who comes up with the business plan, if you like, for the property. Is this property, am I going to redevelop it? Am I going to tear it down and rebuild it? Am I just going to increase the rents? Whatever the business plan is, that's going to be, and then who actually engages in executing on the business plan, that's the sponsor, right? That's the person who is signing on the debt, right? The person who's the most liable for the deal. So that's the sponsor or the operator or the developer is another interchangeable term. But the syndicator is somebody who is going to be raising the capital, especially the equity capital, for that sponsor. Now, it might be the sponsor who raises the money for their own deal, in which case, like I said, they are syndicating their own deal. But they could go to a third-party syndicator who will raise that money for them.
Okay, great. Got it. Now, years ago, I guess syndication was a tough job, because you pretty much, you have to have a nice little Rolodex, and you have to do a lot of work. These days, there's ways to do it online, and that's something you guys specialize in a lot, I believe, too. Is it online syndication kind of like the next new thing?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, and Ron, if you'll forgive me, I'm actually going to plug my new book. Your timing is perfect, actually, for this podcast.
Sure.
Seriously, I got an email.
Plug away. This is what the Affable USA podcast is all about. Go on.
All right. Well, it's top of mind, because I actually got an email from my publisher, Palgrave Macmillan, this morning, confirming that my new book, Leaders of the Crowd, and you can find out more about that at leadersofthecrowd.com, just was published this morning. Actually, it's available in, I guess it's digital, but it'll be out in hardcover in a couple of weeks. And the reason I mention it, apart from the obvious reason for wanting everybody in the world to buy it and see it on the New York bestseller list,
right.
is that it actually answers your question. Your question was, is online syndication or mass syndication, if you like, something new? Well, interestingly, it's not something new. Before, I'm going to get a little kind of technical with you, if you don't mind right now, but in 1933, Congress passed the Securities Act. And the Securities Act of 1933 actually prohibited crowdfunding, what is called crowdfunding. So everything until 1933, the entire infrastructure upon which America or was based, right, or was financed, was through crowdfunding. It was all syndications, huge syndications that were run by banks and financiers to finance the growth of America. In 1933, after the Great Depression, it was prohibited. At least it was prohibited to do it in any public sphere. You couldn't publicly solicit, or what's called general solicitation. There was limitations put on it. The only way you could do that was by doing an IPO, going public. And that involved huge expense, a lot of time, and a lot of money. In 2012, the Jobs Act rolled back those restrictions. So what is new is not that you can now generally solicit. That existed before 1933. What is new is that today you can generally solicit, you can advertise or promote your deal, but now you can do it online, right? You've never been able to do that before. So that's the fundamental shift in how you syndicate a deal. But if I may continue briefly, Ron, what happened between 1933 and 2012 was that sponsors, the only way they could raise money for their deals by law was by going to somebody that they already knew. They had to have a pre-existing relationship before they could solicit an investment from somebody. The 2012 Act said you don't have to have that relationship anymore. Now you can advertise. So suddenly, developers and sponsors, in order to raise capital for their deals, they don't have to go to the country club or friends and family or business associates anymore. Now they have to learn how to advertise and how to manage digital marketing in order to attract investors online. That's the fundamental shift. And that's actually what's so exciting about this new world.
Yeah, well, like everything else, everybody's in the marketing business. Everybody has to get their people's eyes on their projects, and crowdfunding and online is a great way to do it. And in fact, I was just looking at one of your websites over at, I believe it was gowercrowd.com. You wrote a blog post about 7 steps to raising equity online. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it seems so easy. You read those 7 steps, like everyone should be able to do this, but if that's just not the case, it's hard. It's still hard. People think, oh, I'm going to put my deal on a portal, and everybody's going to come and invest. You still got to do a lot of work marketing, and I'm sure you run into that a lot of times.
Yes, you're quite right, and thanks so much for taking a look at that. I think it's the About page or something. I'm not even sure which page it is. I'm grateful to you for taking a look at that. Yes, that's right. There are 7 key steps that you have to take, but it does take a lot of sophistication to do it. You do have to suddenly become a digital marketing expert in order to be able to do it properly. And the biggest issue for sponsors, of course, is that having been prohibited from using technology to raise money for their deals means that there are very few sponsors and developers who have any skill set in doing that, right? Because it was
absolutely,
you never had to. Whereas if you think of any other industry, right, they all advertise online: cars, watches, phones, food, whatever it's. Even the local grocery, sandwich shop was allowed to advertise online, and so they became proficient at doing that and using social media to gain visibility. Well, now suddenly sponsors have the opportunity to do that, and you do have to acquire new skills. And so that's basically what I do, is I sit in between sponsors and the investment community by providing all the infrastructure that sponsors need in order to be able to go out there and raise capital so that